Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is Learning Life Skills Together weekly Zoom meeting number 96, and I'm here with Keith Grierson. And Keith has a really large stack of hats that he wears. So I'm going to ask him later on to talk to us about what it is that he's been up to. And of course, right now, as we always do, we're going to get ourselves ready to listen by doing a short practice together. And so we're going to do a very simple practice of paying attention to our body and our breathing. So if you'd like, if you're in a place where you can do this, you could close your eyes. Don't have to. You could be sitting down. You could be standing up. You could decide to lie down for a few minutes and really just settle in. So, however you choose to be, in whatever posture you like, just bringing your attention now into your body, feeling those places where you're touching down. So maybe your feet are on the floor and you feel the pressure on the soles of your feet, or you feel your feet crossed over each other and you feel that touch. Maybe you feel your legs, your buttocks against the chair. Maybe if you're lying down, you feel your whole back, shoulders, head resting somewhere. So however it is that you're resting, you're being supported, you're being held by gravity. And here's the thing, if you're being held by gravity, you don't have to be working. So maybe you could check in and see how much work your body's doing right now and how much you might be able to just let go of. Just let go and be held. And something else you might notice would be the fact of your breathing. So it's just happening. I'm not asking you to breathe. I'm not asking you to breathe in some particular way, do anything with it at all. I'm just saying, let's notice that that's happening. And how is it? How does it feel when you breathe in? How does it feel when you breathe out? I notice myself that when I breathe in, I feel like I get just a little bit tighter. I sort of move upward in my chair a little bit, and when I breathe out, I kind of loosen up and I settle down a little bit. So maybe something like that is happening for you. Maybe it's something different. Just take a look. See how it is. How it is to allow yourself to be held. And how it is to just let your mind rest on that sense of your breath moving in and out. Maybe your body settling as you breathe out. I don't know, but you do. So seeing if you can stay in touch with that feeling of your body just being held by gravity. Seeing if you can stay connected to your breath as it moves. And when you're ready now, you could take a deeper breath in through your nose and then let it out through your mouth. So, and maybe you'd like to try that again, just breathing in through the nose and out through your mouth. One more time. And if your eyes have been closed, you could open them now. If you've not been looking at your screen, you could look back at your screen. And so here we are. And so I'm going to ask Keith what this was like for him, if he found anything out.
I appreciate that, Doctor. Thank you. I felt really a release, an airiness. I feel the tightness of my face releasing and just
Mm,
going free.
yeah, it's really interesting. We spend all day making our face look the way other people want it to look, right? We just unconsciously are responding to everybody's looking at us. And so we get a moment to be by ourselves and be who we are. And I think there's some value to that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, because we are unique, and that's one of the themes I think that we're going to talk about is our own uniqueness and what that means. So, but first, I said you have a big stack of hats, Keith, and I was wondering if you could just sort of fill us in on, the things that you're up to, things you've been doing. So,
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm originally from Rochester, New York. I moved down to northeastern Pennsylvania out of college many years ago, just north of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and then moved down here to southeast PA, where I've lived for the last about 13 years with my family in Skippack. I worked in the food and restaurant business for over 30 years before retiring from that job. And right before the pandemic, I purchased a home care franchise, not knowing that the pandemic was coming, of course, and opened up that franchise, or at least submitted my paperwork with the Department of Health for our licensure. We received a letter saying that they had our application, they had our check, and it would be 7 to 9 months or maybe longer before we would hear back from them. So it was at that time, or a little bit later, I started with Chester County Hospital, working in the public safety department. I'm a lifetime firefighter, retired EMT. Both my grandfather and father before me were firefighters and fire chiefs up in the Rochester, New York area. And so it truly is and has been a family tradition for all my life and for many years of theirs before their passings. Um, and so I've always had that giving mentality and that caring mentality, and trying to keep people safe. And
yeah.
so I joined the team at Chester County Hospital while I was waiting for my licensure to come in with the Department of Health, and eventually got my licensure and opened up the proverbial four walls for my franchise. And we operate predominantly in Bucks and Montgomery counties, although we are licensed also to take care of clients in Lehigh County also. But I've still worked for the past number of years with Chester County Hospital because I enjoy doing it so much. I enjoy the opportunity. But I also selfishly took advantage of the tuition reimbursement program that the hospital offers and went back to school for my master's degree. And I am happy to say I'm two classes short of graduation, and I'm taking those two classes now. We actually started last week on Friday, and in the spring of this year, I'll graduate with my master's degree in emergency management. So I truly do, wear a lot of hats. I was a chief officer of my department here in Skippack. I was the fire chief up in Northeast PA of my department before I moved down here. So whether it's a leadership role or a quote unquote regular firefighter, it's what I do, sort of in my part time. But mainly, again, I run the home care business now, um, both from a operational standpoint as well as an HR standpoint, because I have experience in both operations and human resources. And I still do some caregiving shifts myself. Originally, it was out of necessity in the pandemic era because the
Yeah.
government was quite honestly still paying people to stay home and just do nothing. And we had our license, and there were people that needed help. So I, jumped on the proverbial horse and, started taking care of people from a caregiver perspective. Today I do it because I enjoy doing it, but it also keeps me in touch with my clients and my caregivers a lot differently than I might have otherwise been able to do if I was just sitting in an office for 5 or 6 days a week.
Right, right. And so in that business, you're working with seniors, I'm gathering for the most part.
Yeah, predominantly seniors. Our license allows us to take care of anyone that's 18 years of age or older. But most of our clients, to your point, are senior citizens. And we are licensed just over 2 years ago with the Veterans Administration. And so the Veterans Administration basically gives us veterans that are in need of home care. And, we contract with the VA and take care of our veterans, which is also very important to me as both of my grandparents, both my grandfathers, were military men and served our country. And so to give back in that vein also is something that's very
Yeah.
important to me.
Yeah. So you're meeting a variety of adults, and I'm thinking predominantly, particularly, I guess, of the senior citizens. And that fits in, sort of really easily with what we do at Learning Life Skills Together. So Learning Life Skills Together is a program for parents and carers. And so, that carer name, that carer label goes all over the place. And grandparents and interested older folks, you know, do spend a lot of time with kids or can. And so this is one of the areas where, you know, I really want to sort of chat with you about, how this whole idea of caring, which is what your business is, as well. So you also, if I remember correctly, have written a children's book. So here you are working with people who need care, and then you're writing this children's book that sort of, the way I look at books, that are pitched to children is that they are an opportunity to care for the child. We read them aloud, and that's a way of strengthening our relationship and showing that we care, as well as the content of the book, which may be. turned in that direction as well. So maybe there's something to this idea just of caring and how it looks towards kids and how it looks back the other way as well. Because we don't um, we don't just care for kids. We get something back. So maybe there's something there. I don't know that sparks your interest that you can grab hold of.
Absolutely. So yes, I came out with my first book in February of last year, so it's been just about a year now, and it's called Your Uniqueness, Rue the Kangaroo Dalmatian. The book is based off of my Dalmatian, my youngest of three current Dalmatians.
Oh,
Rue is actually my fifth Dalmatian that I've had in my lifetime, but he's the youngest currently. And he's a very unique Dalmatian by his actions and reactions and lack of actions at times. And so, as I from a bucket list sort of thing, wanted to write a book and a children's book to that end. I wanted to have sort of a message behind the book and sort of a purpose. And so, as I thought of his uniquenesses, it sort of led me to the fact that we in today's society, unfortunately, probably don't embrace and respect one another's uniquenesses and differences as much as maybe we should. That is, sort of a broad statement and maybe doesn't apply to everyone. But as I sort of decided that I wanted to write this book, I didn't want it to be just something that I wrote and it sat on, my shelf in my house. I wanted to have a purpose behind it. I wanted to be able to get out and talk to people about it, much like we are today. And I wanted people to find value personally in the message that I was trying to get out there through Rue and the story within the book. And I'm happy to say over the past year, we've done a lot of different events. Predominantly, Rue has been there. Rue is the one that
wow.
really, sells the book, if you will. But he's the one that sort of starts the conversation. He's that dog. Um, some places don't allow dogs in that we've went to, and that's a whole nother story. But whenever we can get Rue out there, it's a plus. And we've had a lot of fun. We've sold a lot of books, but one of the missions that I've had, both through my business and just personally, and at the hospital to that end, I've donated and I've given away a lot of books also because there are people that just in the moment. Don't know that I wrote a book or that I have a book with me. And so just yesterday, for example, at the hospital during my shift, there was a young girl, probably 3 years of age, that was at the hospital
Mm.
sitting in the emergency department waiting for her name to be called to get back to be seen. And just her attention was all over the place. And so mom and dad were having a little bit of a challenge,
Mm.
keeping her occupied and quiet and whatnot. And so I offered, mom and dad, the opportunity to, receive my book. And I asked if it was okay if I gave it to their daughter. And they accepted that opportunity. And so, those moments for me are very important. First, that they had the wherewithal to accept it. But for me, just knowing that, just in that moment, I made a little bit of a difference. And ultimately, I don't know the true difference because I may never see that family again, and that's okay because now they have the book and they do with it
Yeah.
as they choose. But sometimes it's just giving that little nudge, whether it's handing them a book or saying a kind word or recognizing that they're having a bad moment. And again, those efforts that I'm trying to get out through the book and demonstrate myself in whatever role or whatever hat that I'm wearing means so much. And it can be, again, it can be delivered to a young child, or it can be delivered to, an older individual, or someone, again, that doesn't even know that they need a helping hand, or they need, some sort of help.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a perfect little picture, a perfect little exchange, and one that we have been pushing for our whole existence, really, is that reading together. We talk about doing things with the kids that let us help show off the our four skills, our four life skills. And so those life skills are paying attention is the first one. And that's what we do when we read. And so what's really fun and actually profound, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is when we share our attention. So that, we point, and I don't know how I'm getting all this stuff to happen on the screen, but it's pretty cool. We point at something and we both look at it, and we come together sort of as one in that moment when we're sharing attention. So to read together brings us closer, not just physically because we're there looking over each other's shoulders, but emotionally we come together because we're sharing that attention. It's really a profound thing that we kind of just gloss over because it's so obvious. But as we do that, we're building up that relationship. We're building the good part of that relationship that we can rely on as that relationship goes on and as it grows. So to give somebody a book is this really profound deep thing that you can do
Yeah.
for them. And I love the idea of, okay, well, I can give it to the 3-year old, I can give it to the 90-year old, and it's as meaningful,
Yeah.
to share ourselves in that way, to share our attention in that way. So the next thing that we do is what you were doing for that little girl by offering the book, which is to help ourselves come back into balance. When we know how to pay attention and share our attention, when we know how to bring ourselves back from that out of balance place, that takes a long time. That takes a lot of work. And we start before we're 3 and we keep going when we're 93 to figure out the ways that work for us in that time period, in that moment to do that. You know, and so the cool thing is that we're doing that for real. We have a lot of experience. The kids that we're with don't have that level of experience, but they know that they need it.
Yeah.
So they watch us, and we're sharing that. We're teaching them in that moment. We're modeling it. Just as I suspect Rue, your Dalmatian pup, is sharing how to be frisky, how to, how to show joy,
Yes.
those kind, and so it's not all serious. It's we're sharing, the things that we share are all of the values of life and all of our own values. And so
Yeah.
that's why we sort of created the program for parents and carers, because everybody is going to share these skills differently. But if they're thinking about it, they're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get at, is to get
Yeah.
people to practice. So, I love that it's a Dalmatian and that you're a firefighter and that even the little kids can can make that connection. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering how much sort of I picture that, helping people be safe as being a really important thing for you. You sort of said that, that's kind of been what your life's work has been like.
Right.
In all these wearing all these various hats, and some of those hats, as a firefighter, as the person on the ground with in the emergency, that's a really kind of different energy than sitting and reading a book together. And so uh, it makes me think that there's a way that you could help us understand that. Could you talk a little bit about the sort of the feelings of being, this person who is in charge, the chief on the ground in that, dangerous situation, and how that feels, what that's like for you, and sort of how you connected to that, helping people to feel good and feeling like you're caring for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all about preparedness and training, and at the end of the day, having those values of caring and high standards and making a difference. So I think that whether it's me as a chief officer or as a firefighter or EMT or whatever role that I'm in, there are so many other people that are just like me, whether they're the doctors or the
Mm,
nurses at the
yeah,
hospital or our fellow firefighters, our brothers and sisters in emergency services. Um, those individuals bring those same values day in and day out to the job, whether they're professionals from a career standpoint or professionals from a volunteer standpoint. They're all working to do the same thing in making those differences and in caring for people. And so I think that everything we do is sort of based off of that as a foundation. And I sort of compare it to building a house. You have to have a strong foundation to build a house. Otherwise, eventually, if you have a weak foundation, everything's going to come, crashing in. And so, everything that I do or that we do, and any of the different, things that I do, from the fire service to emergency management to work at the hospital in public safety, is deep rooted in that foundation and in that training and in the belief that we're there to take care of people. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, at one of their or maybe their worst moments in their lives. And so I have to have, compassion and empathy. And at times we need to, or I need to show grace, and it looks different, in different situations. And I think that's truly something that has helped me become the person that I am today. And that is there's not always, the ability to see things in black and white. At times we have to see the gray in different situations or realize that this situation, although uniquely similar to a previous situation, can or should be maybe handled a little bit differently. And so I think those are the things that ultimately have, guided me and helped me to be successful. And at the same time, not forgetting, those foundational things, those roots, if you will,
right. Yeah,
because those are telltale things that can at least maybe start a conversation or start a step forward in
yeah,
the right direction. And
yeah.
then you sort of need to have the openness to have that vision and that wherewithal to realize again that the situation in front of you or the person in front of you or the people in front of you might steer you in a little bit of a different direction because of the need in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
And so you're always learning, but you're always coming from that foundational place. And I
yeah,
think that's, that is the story of our four life skills.
yeah,
And so I'm noticing that I didn't say what the other two were for anybody who's just dropping in. So we have attention, and we have this idea of um, regulating our emotions, being able to calm ourselves down, being able to come into balance. And then we have this idea of, so, which I think you're probably very familiar with, of things are going to be difficult for a while here. How do I get through this? What are the things that I can do for myself? What are the things that I know, have learned, can bring into this situation that are going to help me get through and not run away?
yeah,
Because this is, because we're talking about mostly mental health with this. And so we do, as humans, have that feeling that, what, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be involved in this difficult situation. I just as soon go home, go to sleep, have a drink, whatever it might happen to be, and just ignore it. And we really can't if we're caring for ourselves and those around us. We have to keep being able to come back and work on the difficult situation.
yeah,
And so, what our life skills in that area are the things that we can do to give ourselves a little break and say, okay, let me step back for a moment, but I got to go back again. We got to solve this. We got
yeah,
to get this figured out. And so, the healthy things that we can do to step back are really important. And one of them is really just to turn towards the situation and to work.
yeah.
And, I never dreamed as a kid that I would be telling people that work is a really good thing. But but here I am
Yes.
saying that doing the work is really, one of the things that helps us because and I think you might have something to say about this too, because that work takes us out of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And just to sort of, take a step back, just going back to the firefighter mentality and whatnot, or one of the things that we often say is that when people don't know who to call or who will help with this situation or that situation, they call the fire department because the fire
Mm.
department and the firefighters, they know who or how to handle the situation. So if we're not the right ones, we know how to parlay the resources, accordingly. And to that end, when there is this bad situation, when you're trying to get out, we're generally trying to rush in, to help or to mitigate the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And so, it's that's sort of the mindset that we have. And I've tried to carry that into, whatever the role is that, or whatever the hat is that I'm wearing that particular day is to be that problem solver, be that person that someone can count on if their day isn't going, the way that they want it to go or the way that it should go. And so again, it's having the resources and the wherewithal to, be that person for somebody, in regardless of the situation. See it through to the end. And there's times where even in the fire department, we may pull everyone back or we might pull everyone out of a house fire, because we need to regroup or we need to,
Yeah.
reanalyze the situation from a safety standpoint. And then we go right back in and figure out, how we're
Yeah.
going to deal with it. We may change our approach a little bit, but we're going to see it through to the end. And I think that's important. And I think another piece on the tail end of things is that, and I think we in the fire service at times are sort of our own worst critics. We're always trying to look, to see how we can do things better, the next time, because we're not perfect. We're at the end of the day, we're human, just like everybody else.
Yeah,
And so, although we bring, a wealth of training and knowledge and expertise and tools of the trade, we're always talking about how we can do things better, the next time the alarm sounds. And I think with these life skills, that sort of, is the same mentality as, we don't always, make the best decisions, or we don't always
yeah,
make the
that's for
best,
sure.
choices. But, what can we do to look back and, not beat ourselves up, although, we naturally do that at times, right? It's just, sort of who we are as people. But you have to get past that, I believe. And you have to, again, show yourself grace, which I talked about, a little bit before.
Yeah,
And, that grace starts with giving it to yourself, I believe. And if you can't give it to yourself, you probably can't give it to anybody else. So it truly, everything has to start with you. And the better that you're able to take care of yourself, I believe, the better you're able to take care of other people.
yeah. And so I usually ask the person at the that I'm talking with at the end of our conversation if they have a word of wisdom for us. And I think you just gave us a word of wisdom, and so we just want to point that out. So I'm not going to ask you that. I'm
Thank you.
I'm just going to say thank you so much for talking with us. And do you want to say the title of your book again for
Yeah, so this is my book. So it's
There we go.
Your Uniqueness, Rue the Kangaroo Dalmatian. It's on any of the major book platforms. It was published by Archway, so you can get it on Archway. It's on the Barnes and Nobles website. It's on Amazon. And then I've got my second book, which is at the Illustrator. I was fortunate with this first book to have an amazing illustrator to work with, and she did some amazing work. And so I re-upped with her for this second book,
Right.
which will be out later this year. And the new book is going to be called Finding Joy in All Your Spots. Rue, the world is waiting for you. And so we're excited about that book coming out. And she's just finishing up some of the illustrations, and hopefully maybe by Easter, give or take, the new
Ah,
book will be
okay.
out, and we'll be out, promoting and talking about the message, within that book also.
Great. Okay. Well, we will post that with this podcast or weekly Zoom meeting, as we call them. And I suggest that folks grab that and grab a kid and read aloud. Start
Thank you so much,
start
Doctor.
sharing those skills. All right. Thanks again.